Greetings, welcome everybody. Happy Thursday. We are going to go ahead and get started, and I just wanted to do a quick sound check. If you could just say yes in the box if you can hear me. You should be able to hear my voice and then also see the PowerPoint on your screen. Great. It looks like we have people present. So wonderful. We're really excited to have everyone here today. We are going to be going through pieces around recruiting Promise Fellows and really hope to create a pause in your schedule just to help you think about this and help share some of the nitty-gritty details of getting great people on board for next school year. So to orient you to this webinar platform, you can both see the people in the top right-hand corner. You can click the button that says people, and you can see all the great folks on the webinar. And then we will be using the chat box as well. So if you have questions, Hannah Zelmer is operating the chat box, and so please feel free to add questions or comments or advice, as we have both new sites who have not hosted Promise Fellows before and returning sites who've been hosting Promise Fellows for years. And then also a handful of our supervisors have served as Promise Fellows before. So we just really want to invite all of you to share your wisdom today. And we will be sending out this webinar as well, both the recording and the PowerPoint. So if you need to share it with anyone at your site or review any information on it, you will get that. So an introduction to the folks, the people, the voices that you're going to be hearing today. Kyle Klein, our recruitment manager, Bette Benson, the compliance and program manager, myself, Sarah France Ulmer, National Service Director, and then Hannah Zelmer, Director of Operations and Finance Manager. And those folks support the Promise Fellow program in addition to our training team and other Alliance staff. So we are really excited to be going into the next year. Our goal for this time today is to just do a short grounding in the Promise Fellow model, and really we're going to be focusing more on the model in August, the August Supervisor Training. So I want to encourage if folks have questions around the Promise Fellow model and what that time looks like once you get your Promise Fellow on site, to be in touch with Noam, Rachel, Nabil, or I. We're really going to be focusing on recruitment, applications and member placement, onboarding, key training pieces for the beginning of next year, starting in August and September, and next steps to really have on your radar between now and when your member starts. And as I said, we know all of you have really full plates. We're grateful for your time today, and our hope is really to create a pause in your schedules so you can think about this. We hope you can take notes during this and that you're inspired afterwards to find all these great people who are going to be serving at your sites. To briefly ground all of us and the why of this, why are we doing this, who are these people who we're bringing on board? So we are a statewide program. Promise Fellows serve 6th through 12th grade, and we are in middle schools, high schools, and community-based organizations. And we still have slots open for host sites, so if you know another site, middle school, high school, or community-based organization who you think might be a great host site or could really utilize Promise Fellows, please have them be in touch with me, Sarah Ulmer, and I'd be happy to have that conversation. Promise Fellow focus lists are built by several qualifiers, and so I just wanted to mention this as you're starting to think towards next year and the students who your fellows are going to be supporting. So students are put on Promise Fellows focus lists looking at attendance data and then using a student engagement tool. And again, if you haven't seen this tool or you need more information, be in touch with Noam or myself. And we're really excited this year for our new community, for all community-based sites. We are going to have an attendance threshold that's based on community-based or community site attendance to qualify students for your focus list. So Noam has been in touch with all of our community-based sites about that. And again, be in touch with Noam if you have questions. But just to ground you in thinking about the actual students that your fellows will be serving. And then before I pass it to Kyle, This work starts with really finding the right people, and I just am always excited, and I think what's kept me in this line of work so long is the collective impact that the Promise Fellows have throughout the state. So this is just a slide of our impact in 2017 and 2018. And you all know the impact that your fellow has at your site. You see it with the young people that they serve. And I also think it's worth mentioning that the fellows that serve at your sites go on to do great things. And so you all are really supporting the professional trajectory of fellows. 40% of our fellows are hired by their sites. So I also think it's a great recruitment tool for finding great staff. So with that, I'm going to pass it to my coworker, Kyle Klein, to dig into the nitty-gritty of recruitment.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to give you some updates on recruitment. So there are currently 46 Promise Fellow applicants who have applied directly through our application site. 13 are currently in the screening process. 21 have been submitted to host site for their interview process. And 12 have accepted positions for next year, which we're really excited about to have that many folks on board ready to go for September. So I wanted to touch a little bit on what we at the Alliance do and what our role in recruitment is. So we are going to post, and we have posted, generic Promise Fellow postings to all the major college career boards. There's a really great website called Handshake that allows you to post to 700 some colleges across the country. One of our most successful job board places is the Minnesota Council of Nonprofit Job Board. So posting to that and updating that, every 2 weeks to a month to make sure that they're always refreshing and getting up to the top. I've attended career fairs from UW Superior all the way to Luther College. I was just there this week and am still having more college touch points throughout the remainder of the college year. We've created flyers for all the host sites for folks to be able to use those to fly around your community or at your host site. And tabling, it's not just job fairs, but just getting the word out there that the Alliance does the work that we do with the Promise Fellow program, and trying to connect with parents or community members that may know someone that would make a good Promise Fellow. So if you have any community events coming up that you're aware of, let me know, so then we can make sure that either I'm or a representative of the Alliance can be there to help promote your positions. Tapping into our alumni network, I'll talk a little bit later about how important that is. And want to talk about a press release too. We've recently sent out a press release promoting the positions that we have to all the major news outlets, so like Star Tribune, NPR, places like that. And we'll also be sharing a customizable version for all the host sites to use on their own to be able to promote their own specific positions that they have at your host sites. And next, just a little bit of the pieces that I want to lean on you all a little bit more. So being able to post specific positions on job boards, MCN, those places like that. If you have an internal hiring portal, that's really, really good place. Just overall, just really want you all to do what you would normally do when hiring a permanent position. So if you were, taking on a new staff member, full-time staff member, just do the exact same thing. So that's what your Promise Fellow will be doing for their term. So making sure that you're posting to social media, sharing across your networks. I know parent letters are a really good way because then they can share it with fellow parents, community members, just really anything that can get the word out there. And I will say that is the shoulder taps. I'll continue talking about shoulder taps. That is our best way of getting a Promise Fellow in the door, is having someone, tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, I think that you'd be really good in this role. I really want to see your application come in. That is a really, really great way to get folks on board. So as you can see, 85% of AmeriCorps members find out about their positions through site and alumni referral. And that is a huge number of AmeriCorps members that find out, because traditionally folks who come into the AmeriCorps positions are in a time of transition. So they're kind of, finishing up a year of their academics, whether it's high school or college, or looking for a gap year, maybe a parent who's looking to do something while their children are at school, or a recent retiree. And all these folks are in transition. So there's so many options that are out there for them as they're searching and looking. that shoulder tap, like I said, is one of the biggest things that folks can do to make sure that they find good quality applicants. And talking about great quality applicants, we want to make sure that you don't lose them. So 80% of candidates apply to more than one host site, because we make it pretty easy for folks to be able to access and see all the different opportunities that are out there. And I always encourage them to apply to as many positions as they think they would be a good fit. So what that means, as you can see, is you don't really have to sell your site, and you really have to be on top of iCIMS. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple slides, but please make sure that you're staying on top of that, because good candidates get scooped up really quickly. And I know the statistic that we have here is 80% of our folks apply to multiple host sites within our organization, but they are also applying to dozens of other jobs, whether that's other AmeriCorps programs or other jobs that are out there. So from my experience, most people will take the job that is offered to them first. So hopefully that is your service opportunity. So make sure that you are staying on top of that. And another piece of this too, wanted to say, like, a lot of you have great people right now at your site. So our returning member deadline is May 1st to have their applications in. So if you have a member that you really want to kind of give them a little push to see if they'll come back for next year, please do that as soon as you can, so then we can get their application in and start our interview process on our end, because all of the returners will have to interview with an Alliance staff. So returners are a really great candidate, so please make sure that you're encouraging them to apply if you want them to return.
So we're going to pause now and just see if there's any questions that come through. You can go ahead and put those in the chat box, and we'll answer those as we go throughout.
So here, let's get into some start dates and what that timeline looks like once those applicants are confirmed and are ready to go. So you'll see that our first start date is September 1st, and that's when we want as many of our members to start as we can. So you can see those other dates that are before there, and also those the kickoff dates, the first day of host site. You'll see that's changed up a little bit this year. I really wanted to highlight the onboarding paperwork deadlines, because those deadlines are set based on the requirements that CNCS and AmeriCorps has with their members, that they need to have all their paperwork in a certain time before their start date. So August 16th is our onboarding paperwork deadline for those September 1st starts. So after that, anyone is going to have to start at a later start date. So you'll see those other start dates that are on there. But just want to make sure everyone is aware that there is that deadline that is a couple weeks before the start date, to be able to have everything, all their member files, all that paperwork ready to go. And we've heard feedback from lots of Promise Fellows in the past that the ones who are closer to those paperwork deadlines just feel really rushed, and it's just not necessarily the most positive way to start their service experience. So we just want to make sure that we're being really thoughtful to their time, and making sure that we're able to get them to start as soon as possible, so then they can really benefit from the time they have to prepare for their term. Then to dig in a little bit about the candidate process, there are two different tracks that candidates can take while applying for a position at the Alliance. So the first track is apply through iCIMS. That is our application that's on our website. Then they will get passed along to the host site. So after, they'll do a pre-screen conversation with me, I'll pass along to the host site, which then will be an email that our hiring managers get. And then ultimately, the host sites make that decision on whether they want to bring that Promise Fellow on or not. The second track is a candidate reaches directly out to you, the host site, whoever's there, and you can send an interview up with them, encourage them to apply to the website, because that's a necessary piece of this, is that everyone will need to fill out that application. And then they'll have a conversation with me or another Alliance member for that AmeriCorps screening piece. Either option's fine. But we do recommend, connecting candidates who send in materials to you directly, just to introduce yourself, hook them, like really sell your site, and then encourage them to apply through us first before you do the formal interview. That gives us the opportunity to explain all like the nitty-gritty details about AmeriCorps and all of those qualifications. So that gives them some time to like, oh, maybe this isn't the right fit for me. So then it won't waste your time going through an interview process and then finding out that there's some pieces of AmeriCorps either they're not eligible for or just won't be a good fit for them. So like I said, you'll receive an email from iCIMS alerting you to new candidates as they're submitted to the portal. So when you're reviewing an applicant, there are a few specific places to learn about candidates. So on the iForms tab, you can view their initial application with education experience, work experience, and references. And also in that tab, you can select to see the phone screen 1920 to view an aligned staff member's notes on the phone screen. And if you locate the screen tab across the top right, you can view their short answer responses completed during their initial application. So yeah, on the application, there's about 3 questions that we have them fill out for a short answer. So once you've reviewed all this information, please contact them directly. Either phone or email is fine. We really prefer phone to start off with that personal connection and set up an interview with them. And this goes back to what I was saying before. The quicker that you can get on this, the more likely that candidate will be able to make that decision to serve at your site. So that's a really important piece, is to constantly be looking for those emails and following up with members really quickly. And I will say there is a balance here with waiting for a pool of applicants to come in and then interviewing versus interviewing as you go along. But then again, the quicker you do it, the more likely that you'll be able to select candidates. The longer you wait, the more likely folks are going to find a position elsewhere. I'm seeing questions.
Yeah, can we talk about Amanda's question?
Yes. I will read it. I'm a little confused on iCIMS. I've received any login information to see potential candidates. Do we wait for them to contact us before we are able to see promised fellow applicants? So with iCIMS, you should get an email if you are indicated as, if you're the hiring manager at iCIMS, you'll get an email once. So I'll do the pre-screen interviews, and instantly after that, I send out an email through iCIMS that says you've received a new applicant for your position, and there should be a link in that email that will direct you to log into iCIMS. And it's pretty easy with that link, is then you are able to click on that. If you forget your password, you can change your password. I know it's not something you all log into very often, so you'll be able to change your password. I can change your password on my end too, if that's helpful. And what was that? Returning host sites have the same login information as they had last year. None of that has changed. And for the do we need to wait for them to contact us before we're able to see a promised fellow applicant? So you'll be able to see them once the pre-screen is completed. And then, like I said, I really encourage you all to reach out to them as soon as possible. That's done on your end, to reach out to them and set up an interview for your site. And that's a really good time to share the specifics of your host site with the candidates. And like I said, really sell your site to be able for them to get a good picture of what that term of service will look like for them at your site.
And then I think, Mark, you had asked a question about the educational reimbursement, so the Ed Award for an adult who's not going back to school. And so there is a little caveat within AmeriCorps that if you are 55 or older, that education award can be given to a child, stepchild, or grandchild. But there is that age specification that you need to be 55 or older. So that's a nice kind of perk to look at folks who might be returning to work or retired. And we have some really great fellows this year that are serving, that are kind of older and wiser and just really jazzed about giving back to their communities.
Absolutely. And just you'll see on the slide that's up now, we'll send this slide deck out after the presentation, but there's a link for the member application steps and guidelines that goes really in depth into the iCIMS process, and highly recommend you all click on that. But at the same time, I'm always free to call me up, send me an email. I'm always happy to answer any iCIMS questions and help you navigate that. I know it's not necessarily the most user-friendly website that's out there, but I want to make sure that you are able to connect and find those candidates and have that not be an issue as you're moving forward. And I want to touch too on CNCS's reasonable accommodation. So as you're interviewing and considering selecting final candidates, just want to have you keep in mind that we are committed to recruiting and engaging individuals without regard to disability, gender, race, religion, or sexual orientation. So part of this, providing reasonable accommodation upon request, is a best practice for both applicant interviews and member service activities. So many of you already do this, and just please continue to work with your site's HR department and Alliance to find reasonable accommodations for problem solvers from that application day to their last day of service. Touch upon benefits too. One piece I want to highlight for this year that's exciting is that we're able to offer $1 Metro fare cards to all of our members, which is new this year, and we're excited to be able to offer that. So across the board, all $1 Metro fares, whether it's bus, light rail, any of those type of things, and regardless of whether it's rush hour or not. So that's a cool benefit that we're able to offer. As always, we're able to offer the living allowance, health and dental insurance to our full-time members. So just want to point that out, is that our part-time members that are pretty new this year for our 20 and 30 hour a week positions, they have different benefits. So, and the health insurance and child care assistance is not included in those. So as you are just working with folks who are coming in and applying and having those conversations, any questions about benefits they may have, just forward it on to us, because we'll kind of handle all that, so you won't have to really worry about all the ins and outs of what's allowed and what's not allowed within the AmeriCorps world. So we're the experts on that, and just if you have any questions or any members have any questions, just forward them on to us, and we can help you navigate what those benefits look like. And speaking of those part-time positions, I wanted to answer a question that we've gotten a lot is can you change your slot request? So the answer to that is yes. So we are able to offer 40-hour week positions, 30 and 20. You can see the hour requirements, the focus list, and the cash match for each one of those positions. So how that looks is if you have someone that comes in that you're like, this is going to be a really great candidate, but they can only be here 20 hours a week, we can accommodate for that. So what that looks like is just let me know if that's coming up. I'm going to need to create a different position description outlining that it's 20 hours a week and some of the benefit changes that are with that. So they'll need to reapply through iCIMS to that position. So we're in compliance on that way. And then we can send them an offer letter through that. But it's really important to note that we can't change any of this after an offer is made. So if you have someone that comes in and they accept an offer for 40 hours a week, and then a month later you're like, oh no, we really wanted to bump them down to 30, that we cannot do that. So once that offer has been made and it's been accepted, there's no way of changing. So if that's something that's bouncing around your mind of whether you want to offer some different positions, whether it's like, I already have a 40-hour week, but it'd be really great to have a 20-hour week too, let me know and we can make that happen for you. And we can post those positions and start recruiting for those. So here are just some additional resources that you can go on the Supervisor Toolbox and read a little bit more about recruitment and some of the pieces that we talked about here. And as always, just direct any questions you have to me. There's my email address. You all should have my phone number as well. Always happy to help with any questions or any thoughts or any feedback around recruitment.
So we had one question, whether iCIMS is specific to sites. Can you answer that, Kyle?
Yeah, so every site will have one person that's assigned with an account to iCIMS that will be able to access their applicants once they have pre-screened at my end and all their information and application information is in there. You'll be able to access that while logging in using your ID and password. And you'll only see the folks who have applied to your site. So in that way, yes, it is site specific. So you will only see the applicants that have applied directly to your site.
Great. So we're going to pass it to Bet now to talk to us, walk us through the onboarding process.
Good morning, everyone. All right. right, so yes, once you have found that great candidate, we will start the onboarding process. And so there are both host site onboarding steps and member onboarding steps. So we're just going to go through those right now. So once you found that great candidate in iCIMS, you'll go ahead and make an official offer request through iCIMS, at which point Kyle's going to send that offer letter to the member. And once they accept that official offer from us, that's all it takes. They're on board. And so starting on Monday, actually, we're going to start sending people through the onboarding steps. So those 12 candidates who are in are going to get emails from us asking them to complete paperwork. And so concurrently, while members are filling out paperwork, there are a couple pieces that you as site supervisors will also be doing. So first, when you make that offer request, we ask that you make every effort to have their service location and supervisor known at that time. So these are really for our sites that have multiple service locations. So maybe if you're a part of a larger district, so for example, White Bear Lake, I know I see some of you on. So if you know where that member is going to be serving and who their supervisor is, it's really helpful if you can indicate that right away at the beginning when you are making the offer. We understand that you may want to get more members on board and figure out who's going to be best at each location, and that's okay. We can wait a little bit, but just know that before we can send out a member agreement, we have to have their specific service site and their specific supervisor. So when you make the offer request, a little box will pop up called Submittal Notes, and that's where you'll put your supervisor and your specific site. If you don't know, make that note, and then Kyle or I will be following up in a couple weeks to see if you do know, and we'll just keep following up until we get that information. All right, so once the member has accepted the position, we send them to our online onboarding. And so that's all of the fun things like tax forms, filling out a contact sheet, enrolling in health insurance, if they're a full-time member, different tasks like that. It also includes members completing our AmeriCorps background checks. So I know that that's probably important information for you all to know, so we'll cover that right now. So the National Service Criminal History Check is what we have all AmeriCorps members complete. And so what that is a state of residence check. So for example, if you've got a member who's coming, they're in school in Wisconsin right now, we would run a Wisconsin background check, as well as a state of service. So that's Minnesota background check, an FBI background check, and then we're looking at the National Sex Offender Registry to see if they show up there too. So the only things that makes a member ineligible for service if they're registered to be listed as a sex offender or have been convicted of murder. That is all we are screening for. And all we receive through our checks is confirmation if a member is eligible for if they are not convicted of murder or if they're not listed as a sex offender. We don't receive a full list of any other convictions. So know that if your site requires different background check results, which many of yours do because you're working with young people or vulnerable populations, that you'll need to run your own background checks. And you can do that, but we ask that you are being upfront with your candidates about what those background check requirements are at time of application. So Kyle, reach out to Kyle if you have different background check requirements, and we'll update that position description. We want to be upfront with everyone right away. We don't want to waste anyone's time, and we just also want to be really clear. So if you do have those other different requirements, make sure you're initiating those background checks once the candidate has accepted the position as well, so they're able to start on time. Are there any questions about the background check process or what we're screening for? Before a member starts, we send confirmation that the checks have been received and if they're eligible for service. So you'll get that. But again, you're just knowing that they haven't been registered to be listed as a sex offender or convicted of murder. All right, no questions? If you have any, just go ahead and ask. So another piece of onboarding that we started last year and will continue into this year is that every new Promise Fellow comes to meet with the Alliance in person for a more robust onboarding meeting. And so This is because, well, one, we have to verify eligibility. So that's us checking members' passports or birth certificates and making sure that they are who they say they are. But also, it's a really great time for members to come all together and meet other Promise Fellows and get a bit more of an overview of what being a Promise Fellow is. You know, meeting the training staff here, just getting together and starting to build that cohort feel. And it also is an opportunity for us to support members earlier with some of those benefits like SNAP or those Metro passes. So we have heard in the past from other members that they wish that they knew more about the education award or putting their loans into forbearance up front. And so this is an opportunity for us to meet with them and give them more information and just prompt those things to start sooner. If you have returning members, they don't need to attend this in-person meeting. We have their information from before, so they're good to go, but this would be for all new candidates. So as Kyle was talking about earlier, we do have those onboarding deadlines, and to go along with each of those, we have the in-person meetings scheduled. So you can see in this chart here, we've got quite a few coming up this summer in anticipation of our August 16th onboarding deadline. And we ask members to make every effort to attend one of these scheduled dates, but of course we know that that's not going to necessarily be possible for everyone. So if you're hearing from your member that they're concerned that they're not able to make one of the meetings, just have them reach out to us. We're more than happy to meet one-on-one. We also plan to go up north or down south to meet with people. So we will definitely accommodate and understand that they may not be able to make one of these pre-scheduled meetings. They just need to be in touch with us and we'll figure it out. And then just one thing that I'll add about the onboarding deadline. So we have found that it takes about 2 weeks from the offer requested to complete all paperwork. And so that would be, scheduling a one-on-one meeting with us, also getting their fingerprints taken, and completing that online paperwork. So really, if you're wanting a member to start on September 1st, our best recommendation is to have them already selected by August 1st. So think ahead, I would say 4 weeks would be the at the latest, that timeline for having a member selected. We'll go back. Any questions about any of the onboarding?
Rochelle had a question about placements.
Okay, sure. Okay, so Rochelle, you asked, you can't lock a Promise Fellow into a specific site until I've met them or met your hiring quota. Yep, you can definitely make that work. So again, we ask that you know at the time of offer, but if you don't, that's okay. We just have to know before we send out the member agreement, and so that will happen in August. So you've got all of the summer to wait to meet other people, figure out where the best placement is. So just make that note when in that submittal notes box when it comes up, just say, I'll be in touch in August. So helpful if you know now, but we'll work with you and figure it out in August. Great. All right, so one more piece of onboarding for sites is PreService. So most of our members are starting September 1st, and that's going to be their first day on site. But there are a handful of sites where it would be beneficial if a candidate could be on site before that official start date. Most likely, if there's like an all-staff meeting, that would be helpful for that member to be at, just to get to know people. School. I can imagine that last week in August would be pretty busy preparing for school, so we can understand that could be beneficial. But there are some important things to know about PreService before you offer it. And again, keep in mind that this isn't something that all sites do. So this may not apply to you, but I'm going to give the information right now. And yeah, we'll just go through it. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so again, PreService is optional, and because of that, all site-based orientation, all required site-based orientation must be offered after a member's official start date. So, going through the official safety procedures, showing them around that orientation that you likely do with all staff, the same that you're going to do with your Promise Fellow member, it has to happen after their start date. Members, if they're engaging in PreService, they're not counting any hours or earning a living allowance during that time. They're not members, so they're not getting any of the benefits that, from the Alliance during that time. You cannot require it as a part of service. So if you are going to offer a position to someone and would really like them to be at that, August 22nd all-staff meeting, but they can't make it, you cannot take away that offer. It has to be an opt-in or opt-out without consequence. And then members are not enrolled by the Alliance at this time, so we are not there to mediate any situations if they arise. And then just keep in mind that asking members to attend pre-service can place members in a weird dynamic. They're really excited to come on board and to work with you and at your district or at your school or organization, and so they likely feel like they have to say yes. So if you are offering it, please be very upfront that it's optional, like, hey, we would love to have you, but definitely don't need to. Like, no one needs to be changing their vacation plans or anything to attend pre-service. That is not a requirement of service. So just be very clear about that. We have heard from members in the past that it's felt very required, and that doesn't feel great. So please be clear with your members that it's optional and that they can say no without consequence. If you determine that you would like to engage in pre-service, there are two different kinds. So there's voluntary pre-service. So we say that would be really limited to a 1 to 2 day orientation period. So that like all staff meeting, that would be helpful for them to be at. That's great. They can come in on a voluntary basis. If it's going to be more than 1 to 2 days, we really encourage you to offer them a part-time hired position and for a training period. And we limit that really to 5 days. Again, because they are not AmeriCorps members at this time, their position hasn't started, so really you should be planning everything post-September 1st. But if you need to, you could hire them on for a limited 5-day training period. And in that case, you will be submitting a temporary employment position description to the Alliance for approval. And this is because AmeriCorps has very strong rules about non-duplication and non-displacement. So AmeriCorps members cannot be doing something that paid staff would be doing. So it has to be distinct. So AmeriCorps members, if they're doing a training period, they're not taking over the role of someone else on site. But then also, they are not yet doing their Promise Fellow role. So it is a distinct position. So I know that that's confusing and can be tricky. So really, if you're thinking about offering temporary employment, please reach out to me. My email, I believe, is on the next slide. I want to talk through it with you and make sure that we're doing the best to support your member and also meet your needs. And then also keep in mind that you are responsible for compensation and benefits during the training period for temporary employment. So how you indicate this is pre-service forms. They are sent at the time of onboarding. So as soon as we're sending your members through onboarding, so starting on Monday, you will also start getting emails from us asking you to complete a pre-service form. So pre-service form is completed for each member. So even if you're not doing any pre-service, you'll log in and you'll say, nope, not doing it, submit. If you are doing voluntary or temporary employment, you'll fill out that form, indicate it, get sent to me, and I review it and then approve it, and or I might have questions, so I'll reach out to you. And then once it's approved, send it on to members to accept. So it has to be completed and signed by all parties before pre-service can begin. So really encourage you to be thinking now if it would be beneficial or not. And again, keeping in mind that most sites don't do pre-service. So this may not even apply to you, but think about it now. And again, think ahead. If you have questions about anything, contact me. My email is there and my phone number. I'd be happy to talk it through. And I know that it's confusing, and I'm just happy to work through it with you. So are there any questions about pre-service? All right. Great, so then the last piece is just how we're communicating. So we're in touch with candidates throughout the summer. I'm getting them to complete their onboarding paperwork, confirming when they're meeting with us in person, all of that good stuff. I'd say July, August is about the time when member agreements will start being sent out. And then, on a rolling basis for those August onboarding meetings. And then in August, members will receive the most communication from us, including their full training calendar, and then confirmation of their start date and if they have passed, all their background checks and everything like that. So we'll be in touch lots. When we confirm start dates, we're also including you on that email, so you know that, when it's all official. But if you're ever feeling confused about where a candidate's at, or just have any questions, please reach out to us. We love to talk to our host sites.
Great, thank you, Bet. As a former AmeriCorps member, she understands all the different sides and perspectives of these processes. So we have kind of two sections left for you, and I'm briefly going to go over member training pieces that you might be wondering about as you think about the rollout of your next school year. And so Steve had asked a question about thinking about how to have members on site for the first day of school. And so for those schools that are, the first day is Tuesday, September 3rd, and your members start on September 1st, your members will be on site for the first day of school. But let me talk in a little bit more detail. So members will attend orientation and training with us throughout the year. For first orientation that they have, that's called kickoff, and that is a full day training. For next year, we are going to have members be on site for their first day of service, just based on feedback from sites and members of just really wanting to experience their site. And then they will be with us if they start September 1st. Their kickoff will be Wednesday, September 4th. So on Wednesday, September 4th, they would be off-site at the Alliance training space, and then they would be back on site for Thursday and Friday of that week. And so that's for our 9/1 starts, and we'll provide dates for all of our other start dates. But just to know, your member will start and be on site for their first full day of service, and then we have a kickoff planned within the first couple of weeks of their service. We are shifting some pieces around our training next year, so we'll provide more details in August when we train all of our supervisors, but just to help wrap your mind around some of those changes, we'll be providing content blocks, so fellows will be with us for a full day doing a Promise Fellow 101, 102, 103, and 104 throughout the year. For sites who've been with us previously, we will not be having cores, but we will have a direct trainer that is assigned to your site and your members, and members will be choosing which date works the best for them to attend those meetings. And then we've set our dates for the November Training Institute. So November 13th through the 15th, members will be off-site with the Alliance. So again, you can, as you're planning your schedules and looking ahead towards next fall, just know that all the Promise Fellows will be required to attend trainings with us November 13th through the 15th. And so we will have Metro, Northern and Southern Corps will still have meeting dates, so we'll still have locations in the North and the South for members to meet, and then we'll have several Metro dates as well for those meetings. Thinking about your sites and the Promise Fellows serving at your sites, in our August supervisor trainings, we will ask our supervisors to create an on-site orientation and training plan to really help you plan for the arrival of members and map out all the different policies and procedures and when those will be shared with your members. So know that that piece is coming. And again, our intention is to really help create pauses for you all to think about how to really orient your members and set them up for success. And again, Bet just talked about PreService, but if your site has an all-staff orientation day prior to September 1st that you want to open up to members, there is a process for that, and that would be considered PreService. So be in touch with Bet if you have questions about how to do that or what the best way to offer that as an option would be. And so this applies directly to supervisors. So the next time we will see you all is at our in-person supervisor trainings in August. We have 4 optional dates. We will send these out in the follow-up email, and we will send out an RSVP usually in June for you to name which date you want to apply to, or you want to come to. So know that there is a half-day training required for all of our supervisors, supervising fellows, and multiple staff from your site can come. And these are the dates here, so you can go ahead and block those on your calendars once we send those dates out. We will have 2 other required trainings for supervisors, one in October and one in January. So we really hope to see all of you 3 times throughout the year and really spend that time thinking about how to support your fellow and provide you feedback on how your fellow's doing in terms of data and hours, and are very intentional with that time. So I'm going to pass it to Hannah to close us out and give you kind of key next steps.
Thanks, Sarah. So I just have a couple last slides for everybody, and then we'll be done here. AmeriCorps is federally funded, so a lot of our requirements come from our grant specifically. And then just to let you know that we are just closing out the end of our last 3-year cycle with this current term, and we'll be starting a new 3-year cycle for 1920. So we're really excited to announce that in mid-May. We'll let you know as soon as that starts. And then just another reminder that Promise Fellow positions are contingent on this funding. So until we're able to confirm that with you, please just make sure you're aware of that. And that positions will always be contingent on successfully passing out background checks. Cash match and host site agreements. So we've had a couple shifts this year with how we do these. Most of you know that we've shifted to a deposit system. So sites are responsible for their deposit per awarded slot. And then new this year, we're only invoicing you for that full cash match once your slot has been filled. So we hope this feels a lot better for sites and for us as well. So you will see the host site agreement sent out to you in June, and that will be due July 16th. And cash match invoices will be sent out in August once those positions start filling at your site. So if you have any questions about this, please let me know. My email is there, and you can also reach out to anyone at the Alliance, and they'll connect you with me. So a final recap, just some important due dates for you guys to keep on your mind, kind of like looking at the summer and getting you through to the next school year. We know that, vacations come up, summer happens, so just really have these on your radar as you're planning to continue to support the Promise Fellow program. So as Kyle mentioned, May 1st is that recommended returning Promise Fellow selection deadline. So if you have a great member that you really want to return, please make sure you're giving them a positive nudge and they are applying to your site again, because they do have to go through the application process. June, we'll send out RSVPs for those August supervisor trainings that Somer just talked about, so you can get those on your calendar. Recruitment is always ongoing through the summer. Really make sure that if you're not going to be available, someone will be, so we can make sure that candidates have a pretty seamless experience. And then, like I mentioned, July 16th, host site agreements will come out. Supervisors do need to sign these in addition to lead contacts. So please make sure you have a way to connect with everyone who's supporting Promise Fellows at your site so we can get those signed and put away. And then down at the bottom, our last onboarding meeting for September 1st starts is August 15th. So like Bet mentioned, there's usually kind of like a 2-week period that new candidates need to do the phone screening with us, to do the application process with us, to come in person, get their background checks done, all of that. So have that August 15th date on your radar and make sure that you're preparing candidates so they have plenty of time to go through all of those steps to start September 1st. And then finally, we just couldn't do this without you. We really rely on all the support of our programs and, your buy-in, and you really are the champions of our program at your site. So thank you for all that you do. So we will just sit here for a little bit in case any questions come up, but this is the end of our presentation. Thanks for being here. We'll have the chat box open, and then also Kyle and Bet's contact information is put up there. Feel free to just reach out and let us know if you need anything. And then a final plug, our Supervisor Toolbox link is up there. We'll have this webinar, any resources we have talked about, any handouts that we have for members and for supervisors posted there. So you're always welcome to take a look and find whatever you need.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us today. So we'll hang out here, as Hannah said, and answer any questions, and just hope you all have a wonderful Thursday, rest of your week, end of April, and look forward to being in touch with you as we move throughout the spring and summer.
Yeah.
Take good care.
Thanks, Ellen.
Stop.